Sushant, Triveni, Ishmael, and Arundhati finally arrived at the summit near the entrance of Castle Elarion. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The castle stood before them like a living monument carved directly out of the mountain itself. Towering steeples vanished into drifting fog, while vast arched windows reflected the pale silver of the winter moon. Entire wings disappeared behind cliffs and darkness, making the structure seem impossibly large, as though the hill beneath them existed only to support it. And yet something felt deeply wrong. The castle was supposed to be abandoned, ruined, forgotten. Instead, it stood whole, untouched, alive. Only a handful of dim amber lights glowed faintly behind distant windows. They were sparse enough that they somehow made the castle feel even larger. Even the wind seemed hesitant to touch it. Sushant finally broke the silence. "Fuck. This is some grand-ass castle." No one replied. Ishmael looked visibly shaken. His eyes wandered frantically across the structure, desperately searching for signs of collapse or decay, anything that resembled the ruins he remembered. But there were none. The castle standing before them looked as though time itself had abandoned the hills around it, while sparing Elarion alone. Arundhati noticed the confusion spreading across Ishmael's face. "I thought you said the summit only had the ruins of the castle," she said cautiously. "This looks very intact to me." Ishmael struggled to answer. He could not make sense of what he was seeing. Before he could gather his thoughts, a voice echoed through the freezing night air. "You are not supposed to be here." The suddenness of it made everyone flinch. The voice was calm, composed, and strangely resonant. It was impossible to tell whether it came from nearby or somewhere deep within the castle itself. "The museum is closed during the off-season, and it is nearly midnight." Sushant instinctively stepped forward toward the enormous iron gates. "Look, we got stranded after the landslide, and we just needed somewhere to stay for the night." Before he could finish, the earth beneath them trembled once more. This time the shaking was violent. The mountains groaned around them. Loose stones tumbled down the slopes, while the iron gates rattled thunderously against their hinges. Their vehicles swayed visibly as the ground convulsed beneath them. Then, abruptly, it stopped, and the silence that followed felt wrong. The wind sweeping across the summit vanished completely. The freezing air became heavier, sharper, almost predatory. The stillness surrounding Castle Elarion no longer felt natural. It felt attentive. Before any of them could fully process what had just happened, the enormous iron gates slowly began opening inward on their own. Utter silence prevailed. Then suddenly another voice rang out, this time much closer. "You people need to leave, now, before it is too late." Everyone instinctively turned toward the source of the voice. A young man stood just beyond the gates, beneath the shadow of a stone archway. He looked tense, pale, and visibly unsettled. In one hand he carried an old oil lantern, whose warm glow barely pushed back the surrounding darkness. Sushant let out a nervous laugh. "Well, this conveniently feels like the beginning of some old horror flick, and judging by my luck, I'd probably be the first idiot to die." He glanced uneasily toward the darkness beyond the gates. "So, honestly, count me out." No one laughed. Ishmael finally broke the silence. "Who are you?" he asked cautiously. "Are you part of the staff here?" His eyes drifted back toward the castle. "And what is this place?" "I have been here before a long time ago, but I do not remember it looking like this. I remember the outer gallery near the entrance, but nothing beyond that. Certainly not the entire castle, and not those steeples." Arundhati folded her arms skeptically. "I see. So this is one of those elaborate tourist scams, huh?" For the first time in a while, Triveni finally spoke. "I am completely lost. What exactly seems to be the problem here?" The young man hesitated before finally responding. I am part of the staff here, and yes, the castle is currently under reconstruction. They are rebuilding it stone by stone according to the original architectural documents. He paused awkwardly, clearly struggling to maintain the explanation. So you really cannot come inside right now. There is construction debris throughout the structure, dangerous conditions. He forced an uneasy smile. Maybe come back during summer when the museum reopens to the public. Arundhati responded before Ishmael could fully process the answer. Look, we do not exactly have a choice here. The roads downhill are buried under landslide debris, and it is not like we came here looking for some adventure. She paused briefly before adding with a shrug, well, maybe I did. For the first time that night, even Sushant let out a faint chuckle, but Arundhati quickly continued. Point is, staying put is all we can really do right now. So if you could just show us some spare rooms or someplace we can camp for the night, we would be... The young man stared at them for a long moment before finally sighing in defeat. Fine. Just stay within the outer grounds. Do not wander anywhere inside the castle. Without waiting for a response, he turned and began walking through the gates. The others exchanged uneasy glances before cautiously following behind. Beyond the iron gates stretched a vast, moonlit courtyard enclosed by towering stone arcades. Pale winter light spilled across old pathways and skeletal trees standing motionless in the cold. Long shadows stretched beneath the surrounding cloister galleries, making the courtyard appear far larger than it should have been. No snow rested there, not even frost. Only silence. The young man led them through the outer gallery, a long, arched cloister overlooking the courtyard. Their footsteps echoed unnaturally loudly against the stone floor. Sushant quietly glanced upward. The steeples above them seemed even taller from inside. At the far end of the gallery stood another set of enormous wooden doors leading into the castle itself. Unlike the outer gates, these were intricately carved. Rows upon rows of strange figures, wandering pilgrims, grieving faces, stars, forests, oceans, and unreadable symbols had been etched into the ancient wood. For a brief moment, everyone simply stared at them. Then the doors groaned. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, they began swinging inward on their own. The young man's expression changed instantly. Panic flashed across his face. No! Without another word, he suddenly broke into a sprint toward the narrowing entrance. Hey, wait up! Arundhati immediately ran after him, assuming it as a cue to follow. Ishmael followed close behind, instinctively drawn after them. The massive wooden doors continued groaning shut. Triveni looked back toward the empty, freezing courtyard, then toward the narrowing entrance. For the first time that night, genuine panic crossed her face. Shit. Sushant. She hurried forward. Sushant cursed under his breath before rushing after her as well. The enormous doors thundered shut behind them moments after all 5 crossed through. The sound reverberated through the castle like the closing of a tomb. Then silence. Warm golden light flickered dimly through the vast entrance hall surrounding them. The young man finally turned back toward them. He did not look relieved. He looked deeply troubled. You should not have followed me. It is not safe here. Construction debris, I assume. Triveni interrupted coldly. Her exhaustion had finally given way to irritation. She stepped closer toward him. There is something seriously wrong with you in this place, so stop lying to us. What exactly would you have preferred we do? Freeze outside? The young man looked cornered. His eyes briefly drifted toward the deeper darkness beyond the entrance hall, as though uncertain whether he feared the people standing before him or something far deeper inside the castle. Realizing he no longer had many options left, he prepared himself to speak. But before he could say another word, Sushant interrupted. Yes, please do come clean. Because right now you either sound like a complete psychopath. He glanced uneasily around at the impossibly pristine castle surrounding them. Or a thief trying to steal antiques from the museum during the off-season. The young man let out a long, exhausted breath before finally speaking again. Look, I am not a thief, and I am definitely not staff here. He pointed vaguely back toward the outer grounds. If you had gone around the castle from the courtyard, you would have found the old staff quarters. I came here looking for something. That is all you need to know. Sushant muttered under his breath. Sounds pretty thievish to me. The young man ignored him. And this castle, especially during this time of year, can be extremely unsafe for reasons you people would neither comprehend nor believe. His composure finally cracked. So just stay here, keep yourselves warm, and if those doors open again by morning, then get the fuck out of here. Sushant slowly glanced toward Triveni and then toward Arundhati before subtly circling a finger beside his temple. Cuckoo, he muttered under his breath. Arundhati tried suppressing a laugh. Triveni did not. What do you mean if the doors open? And you cannot just leave us here without explaining anything. She tried pushing hard on the huge arched door, but it would not budge. The young man ignored her. Instead, his eyes slowly drifted toward Ishmael. You are from the Tome Hills, right? Then you know the stories. Ishmael frowned. Stories? Urban legends people create around disappearances and strange happenings in the hills. The young man stared at him for a long moment. Then he spoke quietly. You are standing inside one of those stories right now. No one replied. Finally, the young man sighed in defeat and lifted the lantern. Fine. Follow me if you want. Stay here if you want. Without another word, he turned and began walking deeper into the castle. Arundhati immediately started following him. What? I am curious what this thief is looking for, not like we have anything better to do. Despite himself, Ishmael felt a strange pull toward the deeper halls of the castle. Curious, unsettled, yet unable to resist, he quietly followed behind Arundhati. Triveni glanced toward Sushant. What? Sushant replied immediately. We are not seriously following them, right? Still reluctant, Sushant followed behind Triveni. The entrance hall opened into a vast network of corridors and staircases, illuminated by scattered oil lamps mounted along the walls, while pale moonlight spilled through towering, arched windows. None of them understood how the castle still had light. Finally, Triveni broke the silence. Did you light these lamps before we arrived? Tomei kept walking. For a moment it seemed as though he had not heard her at all. But in truth, he simply understood that none of his answers would satisfy their sense of reason. Every explanation would only invite more questions, smaller questions, sharper questions, so he said nothing. Their footsteps echoed unnaturally loudly through the silence. Portraits lined the walls. Most had no names beneath them. Arundhati suddenly broke the silence with her usual burst of energy. I think introductions are in order. I am Arundhati. I have been traveling through the Tome Hills for the last few days. First time here, actually. Came here because of a suggestion from my sister. Sushant followed almost immediately. I am Sushant. Me and my wife, Triveni, were supposed to attend some fancy end-of-the-century New Year's party with friends in Captain Tomei, though apparently the itinerary changed somewhere between getting lost and exploring haunted castles with random strangers. Even Triveni almost smiled at that, although it felt more like a smirk. Ishmael spoke next in his usual subdued tone. My name is Ishmael. I teach physics at a high school in Captain Tomei. Silence followed for an awkwardly long moment before Triveni finally sighed. I think we already established I am Triveni. No one spoke after that. The only sound was the echo of their footsteps against the stone corridors. Tomei remained silent as well. until Arundhati lightly poked him from behind with obvious impatience. "And you?" Tomei exhaled quietly, finally surrendering his vow of silence. "Tomei." Arundhati's eyes widened instantly. "Wait, Tomei? As in Captain Tomei? Do not tell me you are his ghost or something?" Tomei fell silent again for a moment before receiving some more pokes from behind, then finally answered without looking back. "My parents were cartographers, explorers too. Professionally, they were anthropologists, but they found thrill in cartography and explorations. They were amused by the works of Tomei in mapping out the hills, and hence the name." Arundhati smiled. "Your parents sound like fascinating people. I would have liked to meet them." Tomei did not respond. An awkward silence settled over the group once more. Sushan eventually broke it. "What's with the lantern, anyway? Flashlights exist." Tomei still did not answer. For some time now, they had been wandering through branching corridors and staircases. Every so often, Tomei would stop abruptly, raise the lantern toward a wall, inspect something only he seemed capable of seeing, and then suddenly change direction. Left, right, another staircase, another corridor. The deeper they went, the less convinced anyone became that Tomei knew where he was going. Ishmael had been quietly observing him the entire time. Finally, he spoke. "So what exactly are you doing here?" Before Tomei could answer, Triveni sighed. "More importantly, what are we doing here?" Arundhati immediately came to the castle's defense. "I think we should be optimistic. Not every day you get stranded inside a giant castle and have the entire place to yourself. People spend fortunes for experiences less exciting than this." Sushant snorted. "I would have preferred the experience during broad daylight." A faint smile appeared on Arundhati's face. Ishmael, however, was no longer paying attention. His eyes remained fixed on Tomei. "Tomei, what are you doing here? What is happening here? And what exactly are we doing here?" Tomei glanced over at Ishmael and the others before finally letting out a tired sigh. "There are two answers. The believable one is that I am searching for a part of this castle. Parts of it, actually. Sections deliberately designed to remain hidden." "Hidden?" "A library, most specifically." Sushant groaned. "We came all this way for a library?" Tomei ignored him. "A lost archive, supposedly containing information that has been lost to humanity." Ishmael frowned. "And the other answer? The truthful one?" Tomei glanced over his shoulder. "The truthful one sounds insane. Try us." For a while, Tomei said nothing. "The stories claim this castle is not always here. Not like this, anyway." He gestured toward the endless corridors surrounding them. "Most of the year people visit ruins, a museum, fragments of a castle. This is something else." The lantern flickered. According to the stories, the castle appears whole only during specific cycles, under specific conditions. Sushant immediately rolled his eyes. "Convenient." "I know." Tomei continued walking. "The library is supposed to be at the center of it all." "What kind of library?" asked Arundhati. Tomei hesitated. "Depends on which story you believe." "And what do the stories say?" "That it contains histories that do not exist anywhere else." "Meaning?" "Different histories, forgotten histories, things humanity remembers incorrectly." Silence. "Some stories mention records of the supernatural." "And the others?" "The others are stranger." He stopped briefly. "Books that answer questions. Books that reveal truths. Books that should not exist. Books people have spent entire lives searching for." "And you believe all that?" asked Ishmael. Tomei thought for a moment. "I believe enough of it to be here." Triveni pulled Sushant aside. "This is insane. Tomei is clearly unstable and we should not be around him. We are literally following a stranger through an abandoned castle in the middle of a winter night." She gestured back toward the entrance hall. We should find somewhere near the entrance to stay, wait for rescue tomorrow, and leave the moment they pry open the gates. Ishmael overheard her. Triveni? Tome is not lying about the castle. She turned immediately. Excuse me? The castle as we saw it tonight should not exist. I have been here before, a long time ago. This place confused me the moment I saw it. I do not believe everything Tome says about the library, but I know this much. The castle was never whole. Oh, come on, Triveni snapped. It has been years since you were here. They could have rebuilt it. Tome finally interrupted. The original castle took decades to build. For the first time, irritation entered his voice. Look around you. This structure spans most of the summit. Some sections disappear beyond the curvature of the hill. Who would rebuild something like this? And why? Tourism, Triveni replied immediately, though even she sounded less certain now. Technology has advanced. Restoration projects happen all the time. She turned back toward Ishmael. And childhood memories are unreliable. Do not tell me you actually believe this nutcase. Triveni, Sushant muttered. Don't, Sushant. She rounded on him immediately. If you are not going to back me up, do not say a word. The corridor fell strangely quiet. Triveni continued talking, and talking, and talking. At some point, she noticed nobody was responding anymore. Not Ishmael, not Arundhati, not even Sushant. Everyone was staring at something behind her. Their expressions had changed. Confusion, then unease, then something closer to horror. What? No one answered. What? Slowly, Triveni turned around. Behind her hung a portrait. A young girl, no older than 10. The painting itself looked ordinary enough. Oil on canvas, faded frame, Victorian clothing, except for one detail. The girl was looking directly at her. Triveni frowned. Was she always facing this way? No one replied. The girl's painted lips curled slightly upward. A smile. Small, almost playful. And then she giggled. The sound was soft, barely louder than a whisper, yet it echoed through the corridor. No one moved, no one spoke. The portrait girl continued smiling, as though she alone understood something the rest of them did not.